Hello everybody, you are back with me once again, Josh Clement-Sutcliffe, for another episode of my thoughts and reviews on the latest book which I've read, which this time around is The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. Fire your boss, do what you love, and work better to live more. Sounds like an interesting title and something which I'm sure we could all agree upon is essentially a good thing. So following on from my previous book of Gary Vaynerchuk's Crushing It, I wanted to find out some more ideas about creating your own business, and so here we are. The book itself is actually split into three parts, which we'll be going over, but what's really nice about the book is not only does it always give examples of entrepreneurs who have created businesses and are following the advice that's actually given in the book, it also gives a key points summary along the way at the end of each chapter, so that once you've read it, you can really just get a bullet pointed list of the important things. So what's actually nice about this book is that it's very easy to pick up after you've read it, just to find the specific chapter, to read through those key points, and if you want to then be reminded in full detail of what it is that you were looking for, you can then go read through that chapter. But it really does make it a great resource for once you actually read it, just so you can easily go and pick it up again and find out all the key information. So part one is called Unexpected Entrepreneurs, and this is all about the journey of normal everyday people going through the process and finding out their passions, their business ideas. In the book, it's often referred to as micro businesses. It's split into multiple chapters, and it's all going through specific areas of really going through this initial phase and journey of finding out what your idea is and finding out how you can go about developing it as a business. One of the key points in the book, something which is very often referred back to and is one of the first major points in the book, is to give people the fish. So I'm sure we've all heard the famous saying, if you teach a man to fish, or if you give a man a fish, he can eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. Now, when creating a business, Chris argued that this is not necessarily the best piece of advice, because if you are selling someone something, then they are wanting to buy a product or a solution or whatever it is that you could be offering to their specific need. So we're not actually going to be giving them the fishing rod. If someone wants a fish, we have to make sure that our micro businesses are giving them the fish. While it's important to follow your passions, it can often, hobbies and interests can often lead to knowledge and skills, which can then be turned directly into businesses. But Chris argues that this is not necessarily the best approach, because it's often something indirectly related to our passions which we actually create the micro business from. So one of the examples in the book is someone who created a micro business of taking other people's air miles and creating a service which will then find the best deals out there for them. So this particular person had a lot of knowledge of using and spending air miles from his own travels, but it was actually creating a service around that, not the actual passion of traveling itself, that this person was able to create a business from. So we can often look indirectly at the things that we're interested in and what our passions are in order to find micro businesses which could be profitable for us. Another part of this chapter is to look at who are your people. One of the interesting things about this is that it differentiates from the traditional demographics, things like age, gender, and starts to look at new ideas for basically creating and targeting a target market for your product or service. So he starts to look at newer age demographics, things like different kind of beliefs, interests, passions. With access to the internet, we're able to find out much more about people in their everyday lives and the things that they're interested in, particularly from their social media presence, to old traditional demographics such as one previously mentioned. So when considering your people, there are a whole host of different ways that you can really start to target and narrow down the people that your micro business could be directly related to. And finally, it says that a very good way of creating a micro business is to follow a fad, a trend, or a craze, and gives an example of someone who was able to jump in very early into the growing craze of the paleo diet. Paleo diet was something which became popular a good 10 years ago or so, and someone who was a very early practitioner who was able to develop their own knowledge of this through following the diet itself. He realised there was no online resources out there for it, and so he created one and created a very successful business out of it. So following fads, trends or crazes is a way to get into a bandwagon early and to really start to create a business in that particular niche. Okay, so part 2 is called Taking It to the Streets, and this is all about how you can actually start to actually grow this business once you've had that initial idea. So an important point in the book here is that planning as you go is an important way to go about doing things. So a lot of people get analysis paralysis by constantly trying to plan every single detail, but Chris makes the argument that action beats planning. Actually going out and doing will create a better understanding of what you can achieve and the stumbling blocks which will inevitably come in front of you. And so action always beats planning. The first sale is the hardest, and this is something which I fully understand, and I've learned from the hard way. So Chris makes the argument that the most important thing to do early on is to get that first sale as soon as possible, get it out of the way, and from then things are much easier. One of the things which I do like about this book, and Chris in general actually, is that he does have a number of free resources online on the $100, it's actually called the 100startup.com. One of these is called 7 Steps to Instant Market Testing, and also the 1-page business plan. They are both free on 100 Startup, and the 1-page business plan is actually something which I've used myself and I would definitely recommend. Another important part related to this is to create a mission statement. The mission statement Chris defines is to be a 140 character max description, kind of call it like an elevator pitch of what it is that your product or service is going to do, and to always focus on the benefits rather than the features of this. So an example in the book is of an entrepreneur in America which created a ranch which allows people to essentially to live the cowboy life and experience for one or however many number of days that someone would choose to visit. So rather than just saying come to our ranch and ride a horse, which would be the feature, a very descriptive understanding of what this particular micro business does, the benefit would be come to our ranch and live like a cowboy, live out your dreams and fantasies, as opposed to the feature of doing exactly what it is that your product or service is actually doing. A good way to get going is to create an offer early doors. This comes with a very clear value proposition which is linked into the previous part of the mission statement. So rather than selling a feature of what your micro business does, create an offer with a clear value proposition showing the benefits of working with you, but also to create a nudge. When I was in recruitment, there was a saying that time kills deals, and this is exactly what Chris is arguing. Make sure that there is a reason that people know that this offer which you've created will disappear in a set amount of time, which will create an incentive for these people who are looking at your offer to actually go and buy it now, rather than saying, oh, I could come back later and just check the website and buy it then and potentially forget about it. Creating a launch, tying that into this particular offer, is a very good way of selling, particularly when you first get started. And another free resource on the 100startup.com is the 39 Steps to Launch document. A large part of part 2 of the book is also about letting people know about the new micro business which you have got going on. So he defines it as 3 ways basically. There is the charlatan, the martyr, and the hustler. So the charlatan is 100% talk and no action. So they look fantastic on the surface, but I've got absolutely no substance behind them. The martyr is the complete opposite. So the martyr is 100% work, but doesn't tell anyone about the work that they've been doing. So even though they're doing an exceptional job, if no one knows about it, then how can anyone find you and ask about your particular piece of work? So Chris argues that the best thing to do is to be the hustler, which is 50% work and 50% talk. And when talking about business development, he says that this 50-50% split is the best way to go about doing it. So if you focus 50% of your time on creating and 50% of your time on connecting, that is really the best way to drum up new clients and new work to actually bring it into your micro business. An interesting point, which I think was particularly good, was his idea that if you build it, then they might come. So yes, you could have the absolute best product, the best service in the world. You've built it, you've put it out there, and they might come. You have absolutely no idea. But if you want people to come, you want this to grow and really get some numbers, then you do have to go out and actually let people know about it. Also, something which I thought was really interesting is that Chris said that when getting started, the best thing to do is to say yes to everything. You have no idea where this particular micro business and project is actually going to take you. You have no idea that there could actually be better opportunities if you just were to explore a little bit further. And so, particularly early doors, say yes to everything. Find out as much about the market and the products and everything else associated with it as early as you can. And later on, once you have a better understanding, you can be more selective and start saying no. But to begin with, definitely say yes to everything. So part 3 is leverage and next steps. This is all about once you've got your micro business off the ground and you're really looking to grow it and make it particularly successful. So Chris argues that there's 2 main ways of growing this business. You can grow horizontally, which is basically just to create more products and services related to the initial one, what it is that you created. Or you can go vertically, which is then to go deeper into the particular product that you've done, really try and nail down some more deeper issues which you can sell to people. Something which I thought was quite interesting was the idea that you can grow by adding a product to a service or a service to a product. It's not something that I'd ever thought about before, and it has a lot of legs, I believe. One of the ways that you can grow is to essentially try and make yourself in more than one place at the same time. This can be done in numerous ways. Chris gives us some examples of using outsourcing, affiliates, and partnerships to be able to do this. So you can really just try and spread your own presence into multiple places. And he gives the hub and spoke model as an example of how to do this, where you can create a core business as a hub and then create multiple spokes from that, which are then indirectly or sometimes quite directly related to the core business model. So what are my thoughts on the $100 startup? Overall, I thought it was a good read, actually. If anyone's familiar with Peter Level's Make Bootstrappers Handbook, I thought it was kind of like a little bit older version of that and in a bit more in-depth and detail. One of the things that I like about Make Bootstrappers Handbook is that it's so direct and really lets you know through his own experience, whereas Chris's $100 startup is a bit more, it's got more different examples as opposed to just being from one different person, and as it's a bit longer and a bit meatier, it can go into more examples and also just start to narrow down a little bit more on the actual particular points. But in essence, I feel like the 2 books are actually very, very similar in terms of what they actually tell you about how to create micro businesses and to become an online entrepreneur. And I really enjoyed reading the $100 startup. Going back to what I said earlier as well, what I do really like is that there's a summary at the end of each chapter which give me the key points to it, which means it's a really handy book to have around, particularly if you want to review any of these ideas and just go back and check on it, just because it's really easy access to go find out that particular information. So for anyone who is looking to start their own business, whether it be a product or service, in person or online, I think you can actually get quite a lot of positives from the $100 startup. And in relation, on the 100startup.com, I think there's some really good free resources on there which anyone can use. I thought that the one-page business model, for instance, was not only really valuable and really letting me understand about the own businesses which I'm trying to create, and give me a good understanding and solid foundation to be able to then go and tell other people what that business is, which I was previously struggling with. And it also gives a section on referrals, in which I gave some thought and I came up with some good ideas and how I can actually go and and get referrals as well. So yeah, I would certainly recommend it. And yeah, thank you very much. Hope you liked this review of the $100 startup. I've taken a little bit of a different turn for my next book, so it's not going to be so business centric, but I would love to know your thoughts, your feelings on the $100 startup and on this video. So guys, leave any comments, like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do. I am on all social, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it, I'm probably there. And I'll see you next time.